Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people truly believe that they can do what they want, when they want, because they're special. And in today's episode, what is more entitled than stealing from others, right? Guys, we've got thieving Karens all over this one. I hope you enjoy the stories, try not to shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this happened at the food court at my local mall the other day, and it's weird how boundaries and basic social conventions seem not to apply to some people these days. Me and my wife went to the mall, and we decide while browsing that we're gonna get some food. So we go, and my wife says she's not hungry, but I get a burger and fries and start eating. Halfway through, my wife says she is in fact hungry, and she's gonna steal some fries. Fair enough, I let her take some fries and she eats them. A little while later, I've started on the burger and my wife says she needs the bathroom and she walks off, and I have some fries left on the side of my plate. I then look down to use my phone as I get a DM from someone, and all of a sudden I hear a rustling sound at the side of my plate. I look up, thinking my wife has come back, and then spot that no, it's not my wife. There's some random woman, mid-30s, putting her hand in my plate to grab the fries. She then laughs and says, "Wow, suddenly we're super acquainted, aren't we?" I just laugh out of disbelief and say, excuse me, are you trying to steal my food? The woman then acts offended and she says, "Well, you let the other woman sitting by you steal some fries and you clearly don't want these, so I thought I could have them." I then explain that the other woman sitting by me was my wife, but she's some random person who I don't know, and she doesn't have the right to my food. She then rolls her eyes, snorts, lets go of my fries, and then walks off. I just sit there for a second in disbelief that someone just tried that, and my wife comes back and she asked what the woman storming away from the table wanted. I explained what just happened and we both laughed, as it was weird, inappropriate, and something that most people should probably have learned way earlier than someone who seemed in their 30s. "I'll just take this stranger's food without asking" is certainly an interesting take on things, but not one I agree with. Yeah, that definitely was an awkward situation, guys, and honestly, this might be a total reach, but listen to this. What if the woman was trying to hit on OP, and that was a way to break the ice? Because that would explain the, "Oh, suddenly we're super acquainted, aren't we?" I mean, people do that, right? Walk up to complete strangers they're interested in, and put their grubby hand in their food. Right? People do that, right? I don't know, like I said, total reach, guys. With that said though, I don't know if I would have continued to eat after that. Like, you never know what random strangers are trying to pull. And this person says, "This happened in San Francisco. A woman walks by my table, I'm done with breakfast, and she walks by, and she grabs a handful of half-eaten hash browns. So gross." So yeah, it does happen, I guess. But let me know if you've ever had this happen to you. And while we're on the subject of people stealing food from others, listen to this next one, guys. It's ridiculous. Okay, so this story might sound really stupid because it's literally about a divided workplace over stolen lunch. I honestly think it's bigger than that. It's about tolerating misbehavior. With that said, I used to work at a company that employed a person named Sam, fake name. Now, Sam was a handicapped coworker who was a lot older, and he liked to take people's food. I already felt guilty confronting a disabled coworker, and it was even harder since he was 3 times my age. I had told him numerous times to not eat my food, but he kept saying, "Oh, sorry, I won't do it again." But then he kept doing it again. By the way, we had the option of making sandwiches in the break room, as well as other stuff provided by the company. This was especially frustrating because he turned down that option to steal my food. The fact that he was disabled was truly irrelevant. He knew what he was doing. So on a Monday night, I was packing my lunch for the next day, and I thought to myself that Sam worked Tuesdays, so maybe I should pack extra to account for what'll be stolen. That's when it hit me how ridiculous the whole situation was. If he stole my food again, I would report him. So the guy stole my food again, and I reported him. He had a lengthy talk with the manager, and I don't remember all the specifics, but apparently, Sam was already on the verge of being fired for other problems. And this did not help his case to stay. Sam told everyone about it. The other employees were about evenly split. A few people confronted me for telling on him, literally saying to me, "How can you report a disabled person for the crime of being hungry?" Basically saying to let him steal from me because he's disabled. It was absurd. Just because someone's disabled doesn't give them the right to steal others' food. The other half were on my side. Before I'd started working there, Sam used to steal other people's food, and I had 3 people independently thank me for reporting him. And I know this sounds bizarre, but I had been a voice for a lot of people. A female coworker thanked me, and she offered to take me out to lunch after this incident. I had to say no, since it was seriously weird. She was at least twice my age, but I felt like a hero. So guys, the post ends right there, and honestly, I've read, and you've probably heard me read so many stories about lunch thieves and people stealing others' food, and it always baffles me how somebody can do that. Like, why eat food that doesn't belong to you? Seems like common sense, right? And OP's right, just because someone's disabled does not make them not responsible for their actions. Okay, so the next post, guys. People stealing other people's babies' names is a real thing, guys. And a couple teaches a Karen a lesson she won't forget. This happened to a friend of mine who's named Jane. Her little sister Tina had a younger sibling chip on her shoulder, always trying to undermine Jane and outdo her in everything. Everything was a competition. Jane and her husband knew that Tina would try to undermine her older sister whenever possible. They both got pregnant within the same year, younger Tina months ahead of Jane. Jane and her husband already had a beautiful name idea picked out to honor a teenage cousin who had passed years before, and correctly guessed that Tina would try to steal it. Tina even asked if Jane had names picked out, but strangely did not have any ideas of her own. Jane suggested a few names, each met with the same answer: "Are you planning on using that one?" Tina finally asked point blank what name Jane was planning on using. Jane claimed to not have any idea, but her radar was up and she knew Tina enough to know what was happening. So with that, Jane and husband hatched a plan. The next time they got together, Jane told Tina they decided on a name. They then dropped a decoy name, supposedly hubby's great-great-grandfather who'd been killed at Gettysburg. It's worth mentioning that these people all live near Gettysburg and visited it several times. Dad was a little bit of a Civil War buff to boot. Not reenactment nut, but liked to read about it. Sure enough, Tina took the name when she had the first boy, telling them that it was too good not to use. Jane and husband kept pleasant about the whole thing, and when baby boy was born months after Tina's son, they gave him the name of Jane and Tina's cousin, the one who died as a teenager, the first male-born child in the family. The family was very touched, as the cousin who died was very beloved. And best of all, after Jane's baby was born and named, Tina tried to smugly apologize for stealing the name, again saying it was too good to be used. At that, Jane and husband just laughed, and they said it was another one of hubby's numerous dumb jokes. Hubby's family came here from Ireland in the 1920s, and great-great-granddad never fought in the Civil War. You should have seen the look on Tina's face. Holy moly, that was a good one, guys. And honestly, I'll never understand people's obsessions with taking other people's names that they picked out. And apparently it's quite common. Guys, it's just so funny how Tina has to live the rest of her life knowing that her sister has a son named after a beloved family member, while her son is a reminder that she got played. Absolutely brilliant. And guys, if you think that was brilliant, the next post, OP deals with a thieving renter who robs him, and how he deals with it is absolutely awesome. So my dad owns a house that he's been renting for some time now. The tenants that live there were for the most part decent people who my dad thought were trustworthy. That all changed 2 months into tenancy when they refused to pay the month's rent. My dad showed some leniency and gave them another month to pay off what was owed, but they didn't pay a thing. By this point, my dad, frustrated by the whole situation and being 2 months out of rent money, offered them a deal. The deal was to leave the house as soon as possible and then only pay half the money owed. And they countered with a different agreement, that they would leave the house in a clean state with all their furniture left behind as compensation. My dad, just wanting to be done with them, agreed. So cue to when my dad gets to the house, finding the place in a mess with none of the furniture left behind, including the furniture that belonged to my dad in the first place, as the place came furnished. When my dad confronted them, asking for them to pay up the full amount that the furniture was worth, he was met with a promise of payment after 2 weeks, which he didn't believe. and when he requested to pay earlier, he was met with, "Good luck getting your money," followed by laughing emojis. This made my dad angry, and he decided that he wasn't going to let this slide. There was no way he was going to let tenants rob him. My dad knew the tenant was a Christian pastor of a church, and his son also had a job related to the church. So my dad contacts the church, and he explained everything, from how they hadn't paid rent money, to stealing furniture, to trashing the place. The church was somewhat interested about the behavior. The next day, my dad gets an angry phone call from the tenant's son, cursing at him, asking him what he thought he was doing contacting the church, saying my dad was being unfair. My dad hung up on him, only for him to spam call like 10 times after he hung up. From what we could piece together, the church had told the pastor that if he didn't settle things with my dad, him and his son would lose their jobs. My dad received the full amount for the furniture the same day, and he agreed to back off. My dad later said it was never about the money, but the way the guy treated him and his values. Man, in my opinion, guys, those two idiots should have lost their jobs anyway, right? Like, how can you be a pastor, yet act in such a trashy, scummy way? Good on Dad for getting back at them, though. So this wasn't me, but it happened at one of the retail cell phone stores I managed a few hours ago. We put out demo phones for customers to play with. And the funny thing about these phones is they're locked, they can't be used, and they have no real value. From time to time, a dumb thief will come into the stores and take one of these phones. Today was one of those times. Now this particular store is usually slow, so having 1 or 2 employees working at a time is normal. Today, one was at lunch, so only one employee was in the store. In walks in 2 guys. One's engaging with the employee asking questions, acting like an interested buyer. The second person is looking at the demo phones, but in reality, is taking it off the security stand. The employee notices the guys remove the demo phone from the security device, and he turns to look at him. And that's when the thief makes a run towards the door. And unbelievably, the employee tackles the thief. The two roll around, exchanging blows outside the store. It was a completely crazy scene. The best part about this is the thief got away with the phone, but in the process of wrestling with the employee, he dropped his car keys out of his pocket. The employee picked up the car keys, went inside the store, locked the door, and then called the police. So to keep a long story short, the cops came and they towed the thief's 2016 Honda Accord. In the end, he got a playphone that's as good as worthless, and he lost a good car. Also, the cops were easily able to identify the thief, and they put a warrant out for his arrest. You know what? They say thieves are dumb, and this post just cements it, guys. And I love the instant karma that came with it, right? Like, imagine the guy running to his car, thinking he got away with his cell phone, and then realized, oh crap, where the heck are my car keys? I absolutely love this post, guys. Steal a useless cell phone, lose your car. He deserved it. So this is something I witnessed last night at the supermarket, and I'm way too much of a coward to do anything like this myself. I was in the condiment aisle picking out salad dressing. There was another girl, looked around my age, reading the back of mustard packages. I'm assuming looking at the ingredients. And in comes another woman, 40-ish, on a scooter. Now, I don't want to contribute to stereotypes, but this was a rather large person, and very cliche, of the particular chain supermarket I was in. She stopped her cart for like 20 seconds, probably 10 feet from Mustard Lady. I didn't think anything of it. Mustard Lady was barely 5 feet and maybe 100 pounds, standing close to the shelves. She had a basket close beside her, and I think it took up more space than her. Suddenly, Scooter Lady charges forward, swerving a bit closer to the shelves, looking right at Mustard Lady. Admittedly, I had chosen that moment to try to peek at Mustard Lady's basket. I'm chronically curious, so I caught the whole thing. With a yelp and a rather impressive back jump, Mustard Lady dodges the scooter, but her basket was toppled over, knocking several things out. Scooter Lady kept her head forward and made no acknowledgement. Now, before I could even decide if I had the social fortitude to offer to help, Mustard Lady scoops up her goods and basket and catches up with the scooter. She then grabs what looks like a box of pasta from the scooter's basket. She then walked across the aisle, and she made it a point to put the pasta box on the top shelf, where Scooter Lady could not reach. And that's when she screeches, "What the hell are you doing?" Now, I don't remember the exact phrasing, but Scooter Lady gives a short rant about Mustard Lady being in the way and had to be taught a lesson about needing to pay more attention to her surroundings. I think Scooter Lady must have thought Mustard Lady was on her phone, her large, yellow French's brand phone. I also don't think that Mustard Lady actually intended on placing the pasta box up on the shelves, because she had sort of been holding it up. However, when Scooter Lady Karen's self-righteous speak was over, Mustard Lady didn't say another word. Mustard Lady just looked right at Scooter Lady and tossed the box onto an upper shelf and walked away. The whole time, I'd been pretending to choose between some vinaigrettes, but tossed the closest one in my cart and slipped away quickly. I didn't want to become the next hit-and-run victim. Fortunately, the salad dressing was very close to the end of the aisle. I can only imagine that that was a situation where Mustard Lady will think of and not regret, because that toss was absolute gold. I didn't see either of them again, but that box was still there when I walked past the aisle on my way out. Guys, if I had $1 for every single time I've read a post with a Karen trying to run somebody over with their scooter, I'd have like $7 by now. Like, whatever happened to, excuse me, can you just move over? You're kind of in the way. But we're not surprised, right? A lot of people love to skip that part and just go straight to assaulting somebody with their mobility scooter. And really, what Mustard Girl did after that was frickin' awesome, guys. I only wish she placed more of Karen's items on the top shelves. This is the story of me catching my husband cheating on me, so here it is. We had been married for 2 years when I noticed that he had grown very distant, not wanting to talk to me about anything. He was giving me one-word answers and ignoring my texts. I was griping to a work friend and she thought he might be cheating, so she suggested I catch him in the act. So we came up with a plan, and while I do feel guilty about tricking my ex, I wanted to get to the bottom of why he's acting so weird towards me. So I told my ex I was going out with the girls for a few drinks and would not be back until after midnight. I dropped my son off at ex's parents for the evening and drove to the bar. I didn't drink anything, but in hindsight, I think one shot for Dutch courage would have been nice. It was close to 10 p.m. and I drove back to the house. As I pulled up, I noticed there was an unfamiliar car in my driveway. I was forced to park on the street. After ducking behind the cars in the driveway and tiptoeing to the front door, I don't know why I did this, I looked into the window just beside it and saw my living room light was on. At night, we make sure to turn off every light in the house, so seeing my living room light on was troubling, not to mention kind of annoying. So I walk in, make a beeline for the living room to find it empty. Rolling my eyes, I turned off the lights and went upstairs to my bedroom. On the bed, I saw that my ex had laid out this outfit to wear, and he was in the shower. Now, I wondered why he was getting ready to go out without telling me, so I grabbed his phone and unlocked it. I read every message between him and another woman. Several of the messages were my ex complaining about me being difficult to live with, and her saying that she was a better woman for him, and that he should ditch me and the extra baggage, my kid, because she's way better, trying to convince him to leave me. To my shock and horror, he said he was thinking about it, and I was crushed. 4 years together, 2 of them married, all down the drain, trust broken. I began crying my eyes out, and when my ex left the bathroom, he saw me on his phone. He begged me to let him explain, and I got up and packed a bag for both my son and I. Ex and I ended up agreeing on divorce terms. A few weeks later, I got a call from ex about wanting to take our son to a pro baseball game. He and the new girl showed up. I demanded to know why my ex thought that I would let him take our son with her present. And she had the audacity to say that she would make a better parent than I, that she would make a great stepmother. I don't think so, lady. I told my ex to forget it and slammed the door in their faces. Our son was disappointed, and it did hurt me to refuse him the chance to see a live baseball game, but I wasn't about to let that homewrecker anywhere near him. And spoiler alert, my ex ended up breaking up with her because she was using him for his money. Go figure. Currently, ex and I are in therapy working out our issues. We're in a no-commitment friendship type of relationship, and our son's doing fantastic. And yes, we've taken him to a few baseball games since then. And that's the story of how an entitled bitch tried to steal my husband. My university had a dorm for foreign exchange students. It was intended for short-term residency and lacked many of the amenities in the other dorms. The dorm was divided into pods, each with 4 or so rooms attached to a common kitchen and bathroom. It was 4+ people to a room. No privacy, no locks, no rules. You were assigned to a pod, but they didn't bother assigning beds, so you just took one and worked it out amongst yourselves. The quarters were tight, but people more or less got along. However, there was one girl who was the definition of entitled. She would buy enough groceries for a family of 4, stuff the communal fridges full of her food, and then leave it to rot. And then she would freak out at anyone who dared to move her things or throw out her rotten food. To make matters worse, she apparently felt entitled to the best room or bed or whatever, and she would routinely move to another student's bunk, dumping their stuff in the hall. Each pod also had a resident advisor, essentially a student mentor responsible for ordering repairs and babysitting. The RA got their own room with a locking door. Our RA graduated at the end of my 3rd year, and she vacated her room over the summer. The entitled jerk immediately moved in. Unfortunately for me, I was assigned as the new RA. I got the news less than a week before the end of my summer session. I told the entitled jerk to move out. The resident manager told her to move out, and the other people warned her. And her response was, "Don't you dare touch my effing stuff." She decided to go for a long weekend with some friends to get away from the hostile environment. And the thing is, my classes were over and I was going home to my parents for the rest of the summer. My parents lived about 10 hours away by train, and I wasn't about to drag my stuff home when I had a perfectly good locking room. I texted entitled jerk one last time and asked her what she wanted me to do with her things. And she says, "Don't you dare touch my stuff. My stuff stays." And I'm thinking, okay, well that seems reasonable to me. So I got a couple of boxes from the resident manager and gently packed up her things. I then stowed them under my bed, moved my stuff in, and locked up. I got a furious text message a few days later, demanding to know if I had locked her room. I reminded her that this was my room because I'm the new RA. She then demanded to know where her things were. And I say to her, "Well, you told me to leave them, so I did." I then told her that she was welcome to pay for a train ticket for me to come back, to unlock my room, to let her collect her things, and get the F out. She declined. She told me if I wanted to come back, I would need to pay for my own ticket. Well, given that I did not want to come back, I passed on the offer. I stayed gone for the next 4 weeks. She had to wrap up her studies with 4 days worth of clothes, and her computer was locked in my room, as far as I know. Also, she didn't have a blanket and pillow. I never saw her again. Her parents got her stuff when I returned. This was such a satisfying post, guys, and honestly, OP was nice enough to keep her belongings safe in the room though, because a lot of people might have just left her stuff in the hallway with a giant sign that says, "Free, help yourself." Okay, so this last post is a little bit wild, guys. Here we go. Here's some context. I'm an 18-year-old female, and I have 2 younger brothers. My brother Jake, who's 15, and Henry, who are 7. Both fake names. My mom's in Berlin right now on a trip, so I'm babysitting the 2 for this week. It pretty much started this morning during the morning routine. So I wake up at 5:30, have my breakfast and such, and then I wake up the boys at 6 so they can have their breakfast before school, and then head to college myself. However, this morning was different. I went into Jake's room to find my lacy bra right next to his bed. Shocked, I obviously confront him saying, "Why the hell is my bra in your room?" To which he meekly replied, it was put into my washing." Now I know for a fact that it hadn't just been put in his washing because 1, I do the washing, and 2, I would not put this item in the wash as it's somewhat fragile. After he left for school, I did some more investigating, finding several pairs of my bras, underwear, and even some socks. I had no idea what to do. So I messaged my mom to ask her what the hell this was about, and to tell him off. But all my mom had to say was along the lines of, "Boys will be boys," and how he's at that age, if you know what I mean. She then said if I had a problem with it, that I should just buy him a dirty magazine. And I'm thinking, no. I told her several times to consider how I feel in the scenario, that my younger brother is stealing my underwear to do who knows what with it. She basically stuck up for him entirely and she blamed me for it. I don't think I can convince her otherwise. I just don't know what to do or how to feel. Am I making this a bigger deal than what it is? Am I overreacting? What the hell do I do? Guys, when this post was shared with me, I was honestly speechless. And I seriously hope her brother was like stealing her underwear to like sell it to his friends or something, because that is the absolute best scenario that I want to think of, because I don't want to think of the alternative reasons, okay? And another thing, if mom's all like boys will be boys, maybe OP should go raid her room, pull out all of her stuff, and give that to her brother. I don't know, guys, let me know your thoughts. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/entitled people. What a wild post to end off with. Guys, if you enjoyed the stories, do hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you're not subscribed so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled people episode, another one, where an entitled family tries to get on a private jet and they won't take no for an answer. It's such a wild story, so go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.